Welcome to the Week 6 recap and Week 7 preview video, the final week of Major League Balatro Season 2 regular season. We have a lot to break down in this video, so let's go ahead and get started. The first game of the week was myself against Rarran. Rarran looking to get themselves into a playoff spot in the Onyx division. I was trying to fend off Balatro Bear, holding on to the first place spot. So the first game went to White Stake Yellow Deck, and like it often does on White Stake, it came down to Red Seal Glass, and I was able to take out Rarran with my new multiplayer high score of E28. We found an idol, we found a couple of brainstorms, and it went off from there. Game 2, we went to Gold Stake, and I took it to Yellow Deck, trying to keep it simple. Funny enough, we found another Ancient Joker, and with the help of Smeared and a couple of early blind losses for both Rarran and I was able to win early. I actually thought I was going to lose this round, and I had to hit a 1 in 5 lucky proc to win it. You can see my face looking bad because I told Rarran that they had won the round. I had not accounted for a lucky proc hitting. And then in the final game, we went to Erratic Deck on White Stake. This one was pretty straightforward. I went Obelisk. I knew I would have to sweep on lives basically if I were to win this, as Rarran was building into a really solid idol build, but the Obelisk was enough, and I took this one 3-0. Our second game of the week between Balatro Bear and Rarran was also the first game of Mega Tuesday, where we had 4 games back to back, and I was doing NFL Red Zone style commentary, jumping between the games. And in game 1 in this match, Balatro Bear really leaned into the hackable cards, was also able to Invis Joker the hack and have a couple of them, and with the Glass 4s was able to come away with the victory in that first game. In game 2, we moved up to Black Stake on Painted Deck of all decks, and Balatro Bear actually died to the blinds. Kind of went for more of a Baron Mime setup. The issue was no Baron, no Mime, and that's always really hard to make work with just pure steel cards. So we moved on to a tiebreaker in game 3. We had Ghost Deck on Black Stake again, and Rarran just never could really get the glass in this game, and that was all the difference. Balatro Bear just having glass available to them, having a flat 3x mult, also had an Invis Joker. They never even need the pop. So Balatro Bear kind of keeps pace with me, still has a shot at first place going into the final week, and Rarran losing this game has kind of opened it up for Rarran to have an opportunity to get that 4th spot in the Onyx division. Our third match of the week was between Roffle and Gothic in the Onyx division. Roffle could secure a playoff spot with a victory. Gothic really needing a win to stay and have a realistic chance at the 4th place spot in the Onyx division. Game 1, Nebula Deck Gold Stake. This was a brutal time for Roffle. This seed was pretty horrendous, but Gothic had 1 extra reroll to find an Ancient Joker, which made it a little bit more manageable. Roffle couldn't get their draws and eventually would end up losing to the blind. So we moved down the White Stake Plasma Deck for game 2. And here Roffle really shined, was able to take out Gothic 3-0. Despite Gothic having glass, Roffle just had much more X-Mult, got to that E11 spot. And then game 3 was a classic, a fantastic match that went down to the final PvP on Nebula Deck White Stake. But the difference here was simply the fact that Roffle was able to have more of their idol card, have more glass, and Gothic didn't really stand the chance in the very end with how the cards lined up with Ancient and Idol, and Roffle would take this 2-1 and secure their spot in the playoffs. Gothic needing a bit of a miracle to still make it. The 4th match of the week was between Nito and Justin. Nito needing a sweep to maybe stay in the playoff contention. We would have to run the numbers. Justin still looking for their first win in Major League Balatro. Game 1 went to White Stake Ghost Deck, a classic, and Justin getting their first game win, found all the red seals. Nito unfortunately was already building into aces when a Sock and Buskin came up, and despite having the Oops and Bloodstone together, was unable to complete the comeback. She was down 4-1 lives and brought it all the way back down to 1-1, but Justin secures that first game win, and then Justin secures the match win on Red Deck White Stake. Justin getting the win here, getting their first W on the board in Major League Balatro. Moved on to game 3, Yellow Deck on Black Stake, and this time Nito was able to put it all together with the help of an idol that hit 7 of spades. We had a glass Red Seal 7 added a wild to it and put up 2 million points to Justin's 22,000. And in the end, Justin takes this game 2-1. Moving on to Edzi and Nandre, the final game to cap off this crazy Tuesday night. First game was Plasma Deck Purple Stake, not Gold. And Edzi had a really interesting build going where they had an Eternal Sock, but also Hack, all trying to kind of re-trigger chips, but also glass cards on the PvP. In the end, Nandre was unable to get out of the blinds, and the first game would go to Edzi. And with that win, Edzi putting themselves in a very good spot for playoff contention. But of course, they want to see this match out and secure that playoff position. So, game 2, we went to Painted Deck Purple Stake. Unfortunately, we had a disconnect here after Nandre was leading, and Nandre was unable to compete in the basically reload of this match, which was a bit frustrating. But you know, Nandre playing pretty well. The seed was extraordinarily difficult on this Painted Deck Purple Stake. So finally, we go to Erratic Deck Purple Stake, and Nandre honestly did a really good job of coming back. And then in one ante, Edzi went from having just basically a single Ancient Joker for scoring to 2 Ancient Jokers, a Photograph, an Acrobat, and a Bloodstone, which far surpassed what Nandre was doing in the comeback. And Edzi able to put up 800 million points basically in this Erratic Deck Purple Stake game. Edzi secures the 2-1 or the 3-0 match win, and secures their spot in the playoffs for Major League Balatro Season 2. Another Bloodstone match on Wednesday night. We have Dr. Spectred versus Scooty. Dr. Spectred looking to keep first place in the Bloodstone division, and Scooty desperate for a win to put themselves in the conversation right next to Mouth and C-Dubs for that 4th position in Bloodstone to make the playoffs. First game, Green Deck White Stake, we had a Tribulate seed, and the difference ended up being just a little bit more deck manipulation on Doc's side, as Scooty was unable to get their full draw. Dr. Spectred, I will note, did pick up an 8-ball earlier that led to a couple death cards. So we moved on to game 2, which this time would be on Gold Stake. Doc chose Painted Deck, which turned out to be pretty brutal for both of these players, but a Bloodstone secured for Doc allowed them to win by ×2 in the end and securing the match win. So game 3, Ghost Deck, Gold Stake. And both of these players, very, very interesting builds, having to kind of rely on the mime, but in the end, Doc was actually able to put up 1.5 million and secured the sweep to make sure no matter what Bean did on Saturday against C-Dubs, Dr. Spectre would be heading into the final week in first position in the Bloodstone division. The penultimate game of the week would be played on Friday between Malf and Fur. Fur needing a sweep to keep their playoff hopes alive. Malf, this game didn't matter too much as they do have a week 7 matchup against C-Dubs, and the winner of that game, basically no matter what, would make the playoffs. However, if Fur did sweep here, then there was an opportunity for Malf to miss the playoffs with the win. Game 1, Checker Deck, Gold Stake. Fur finding the idol, something that Malf was missing, and was just unable to get close to that huge score that Fur put up of 37 million, only putting up a couple million, and Fur would actually take game 1. So game 2, Green Deck, Purple Stake. Both players with an Ancient Joker, both players with a hack, but Fur interesting with a Baron and kind of got caught between two minds here. Also had a large hologram, had a ton of extra cards in the deck to feed that hologram, and Malf would secure game 2, knocking Fur out of playoff contention. Game 3, Erratic Deck on White Stake. And this time, Fur would make it work without kind of that retriggerable X-Molt, taking out Malf 4-0 with a Stuntman and a massive Swashbuckler thanks to Egg. So Malf actually would lose this. Fur secures the match win. However, still, Fur unable to make playoffs, and Malf still it's all going to come down to next Saturday against C-Dubs. The final game of the week, Bean and C-Dubs. Again, this game did not really matter for C-Dubs unless they swept, which means Malf would then have to sweep in their matchup. And for Bean, they're looking to get every point they can to stay pace with Doc and try and take that first place away from Doc Spectred. So in game 1, we had Ghost Deck White Stake, and Bean did their thing. Look at that blueprint, the Brainstorm, the Seltzer. It was just pure economic joy on Bean's side, and C-Dubs just failed to keep up with the money spent that Bean did. and this led to a 5 of a kind. Even though Idol missed, due to Bean having all this money, was able to find death cards, create a 5 of a kind red seal with aces, and take the game in the end with a score of E21. Moved on to game 2, erratic deck, also on the white stake, and once again it became an Idol game, but Bean able to just squeeze out a little bit more at 286k, secured game 2 and the match win. Game 3, we did see C-Dubs get a full hand of red seal glass with the Idol with Dusk, but we also had Ancient Joker and Perkeo on Bean's side of things. Bean putting up that E12 and C-Dubs coming up just a little bit short. Just need a little bit more in terms of scoring or re-triggers to get there. Couldn't find it, and Bean completes the sweep in this match. So we take a look at the standings heading into the final week, and we will also go over the playoff scenarios. So myself at the top with 21 points, Balatro Spare trailing at 18, Roffle with 16. All three of us have secured our spots. Balatro Spare technically can pass me for first place. Roffle could also technically pass Balenos for second place, but basically all of us are secured and in making the playoffs, although our position may change. Rarran and Halion are really the two fighting it out for the final spot. Rarran taking on the Gothic. Technically, Gothic does have a path to the playoffs. If Gothic does sweep Rarran, they would have the tiebreaker because they would have the head-to-head. And Halion would have to lose to HC Justin, and then Gothic would make the playoffs. However, Rarran, a win and they're in. That's as simple as it gets. Halion is going to need a little bit of help. Nito and Justin, sitting there at 7th and 8th, are eliminated. Dr. Spectred, Bean, Edsy have all secured their spots for the playoff. Doc and Bean are fighting it out for first place. Edsy technically can't reach first or second since they don't have the tiebreaker over Bean, and they can't score enough points to reach Doc. Malf and C-Dubs, how convenient. They are playing each other in the final game of the regular season next Saturday, and the winner of that game will secure the playoff spot for the Bloodstone division, the final playoff spot. So we basically have a playoff game this week because it's win or go home for these two. There's no other scenario. Fur can't catch them. Scooty cannot catch them. Whoever wins this game will be headed to the playoffs to likely face myself or Balatro Spare. First, Scooty and Andre all did very well this season, but they have been eliminated from playoff contention. So looking at that schedule, Gothic and Rarran, an extraordinarily important game this week, will be played at 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday, September 29th. Do not miss this game. I mean, this is going to dictate how the Onyx division shapes out. Rarran can secure their playoff spot, or they could leave the door open for Halion. We also have Nandre versus Fur, which does not matter for any playoff implications, but will be an extremely entertaining game at 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Tuesday, we have the first featured game of the week. We have Doc Spectred versus Edsy. While this game doesn't have playoff implications in terms of who's going to make the playoffs, it does have seeding implications. Doctor trying to ward off Bean and get first place in that Bloodstone division. I'm really excited to watch this rematch between these two. Wednesday, we have my game versus Roffle at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'll be battling it out as I do not want to give up first place spot to Balatro Spare. And of course, I imagine Roffle wants to pass up Balatro to hopefully get better seeding in the playoffs. We also have Scooty versus Bean at 7 p.m. Bean, of course, has a lot to play for in terms of trying to get first place. They'll know if that's possible after the Edsy versus Dr. Spectred game. Scooty playing for pride. Tuesday, October 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, Balatro Spare. They'll know if they have a chance to pass me up for first place, or if they need a win to stay ahead of Roffle in the division. They'll be taking on Nito at 8 p.m. Eastern. Friday, October 3rd, Halion versus Justin. I'll be casting this game. We'll see if it matters for the playoffs. It all depends on how Rarran plays in that Monday game. And then Saturday, October 4th. You better believe I will find time to make sure I am commentating this match. Basically our first playoff game of the season. Winner gets the 4th seed in the Bloodstone division and moves on to the playoffs. Now an update for the fantasy week. This week we actually had a 3-way tie for first place between Shadow, Sal Paradise, and Rat. all three of you have won a Major League Balatro hat. You can join my Discord and DM me and claim your prize. We will look at the overall standings with 1 week left to play. It's really close at the top. Mr. Beanfan has kind of lost her lead and only has 3 points ahead of Chief 30 Rack. Multi-Rack still has a chance at 2005 points and Kozak at 2004 points. It's going to be a really interesting week to see who can come out of this ahead. In terms of price changes, we had a few. Bean moving up to $6, Doc moving down to $5, Edsy moving up to $5, Rarran moving down to $4. Malf moving up to $4, Gothic moving down to $3 from $4, and then Nito and Nandre switching places. Nito going up to $3, Nandre going down to $2. This is my lineup heading into the final week. I'm in like 15th place. I don't think I really have a shot, but Bean, Halion, Rarran, Nandre are the boys I am rocking with this week. Hopefully they can put up some big points for me, and I can finish with at least a respectable top 10 in the fantasy game. So I'm not going to preview every game this week, but I do want to preview the two most important ones. The first one, Rarran and Gothic. This one, it's going to be close. Rarran has been practicing their butt off. Gothic has been really a wild card, picking anywhere between white and gold stake. They've gone the purple, they've gone the black, they've gone the orange quite a few times to get out of rentals, but they still will go to gold stake. They'll still go to white stake. And I also don't have a deck choice when I think Gothic. I think, a certain deck that just does not happen. So for Rarran, they've had the practice all over, and I've actually spoken to Rarran, played a couple scrims, and they have just been looking at every which way to try and prepare themselves for this game, because Rarran knows all the pressure is on them. If they can just win, if Rarran can win this game, they're in the playoffs. They're in charge of their own destiny. They don't want to leave it up to Justin saving them and getting a win against Halion to do the bidding. And Gothic has something to play for. This isn't like Gothic's just playing an expedition match, which Gothic would still be trying, but Gothic, if they can 3-0, if they can sweep, if they can figure out a way to get to Rarran, they still have a shot to slip into the playoffs. And it's going to be really entertaining. My prediction is that Rarran keeps it on the white stake difficulty when it's their choice. When it's Gothic's choice, I think we see either orange or purple stake. And I do believe Rarran will lean on the ghost deck and lean on that deck manipulation. And this game, in my opinion, I think both these players are actually pretty good with the econ. They're pretty good with the deck manipulation. They're pretty good with the jokers. But I think the difference in this game is how greedy will these two be? Who's going to do a better job greeting those joker spots? Who's going to take a smiley face joker to just make sure they make out of a blind? And who's going to sacrifice and take 8-ball and farm the 8s to make sure they get every single tarot card possible to give them the edge in this game? And then the final game of the regular season, the basically first playoff game, Malf versus C-Dubs. Who's going to get the 4th spot in the Bloodstone division? This one's really, really interesting because we have two clear, distinct play styles, unlike Rarran and Gothic. We know what's going to happen here. C-Dubs, they're picking white stake. Malf is picking gold stake. So with that said, I think two things you've got to look for is obviously one, a lot comes down, unfortunately, to the coin toss on who gets to pick their stake twice. But more importantly, I think, where are you going to take this game? What deck do you choose if you're Malf and it's white stake? What deck do you choose if you're C-Dubs and it's gold stake? And I think you knowing where the other player is going to play, I mean, it's just a foregone conclusion. You can practice a specific deck, not let your opponent know all week long. And maybe you can flip that advantage of them playing on their favorite stake to your advantage, because you can choose something that's a little bit out there in deck choice, something like a black deck, something like the painted deck, and just get very good at gold stake or very good at white stake on that specific deck, because you know the playground, because you are so certain your opponent is going to choose that stake. I think there's a lot of mind games in this match between the two. In terms of how this is going to play out, we have two players who love divergence. Malf will purposefully do unoptimal plays, in their own words, to create divergence. And I love that about Malf's gameplay style, because it can absolutely work out. We saw the victory against Bean earlier, because Malf still navigates this divergent, maybe unoptimal path very well. They still get the most juice out of that squeeze when they do that. They're not, you know, skipping and then making silly plays after. They're skipping and making all the best plays you can after that moment. C-Dubs also does divergent paths, but I don't feel like it's for the sake of just diverging. C-Dubs loves taking the risky play, loves taking the Ouija, for example, which, again, it really hurts to not have that extra spot in terms of your hand size. But turning all your cards into one card, it can win you the match. So this is going to be such a joy to watch. Make sure you clear some time Saturday to check out C-Dubs versus Mouth. And I cannot wait. Next time I talk to you guys in a recap tone, it's going to be for the playoffs. We're going to be previewing every single playoff match. Of course, I'm going to be commentating every single playoff match, and I can't wait for it. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you for the next one very soon.